Hello, everyone. Welcome to Keynote and Vision Address Session 2 and 3. I hope you have been enjoying the session so far. I would like to introduce you to the session chairman, Professor Udaya Kumar. Professor Udaya Kumar is the designer of Indian rupee symbol. He is a professor at IIT Guwahati as well as the previous head of the Department of Design. He has completed his PhD in Design for Industrial Design Center at IIT Bombay. Professor Udaya has master's degree in design, which is in visual communication, and bachelor's degree in architecture. He has worked as a senior designer and as a design head in a monthly magazine called as Intelligent Computer Chip. So his areas of interest include graphic design, type design, architecture, and design research, with special focus on Tamil typography. So I now request Professor Udaya Kumar, who is a senior faculty member at the Department of Design at IIT Guwahati, to be the session chairman for this session on paper presentation by academics and professionals. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Neeraj. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So, greetings to one and all, and I welcome you to the paper presentation session 1 of Typography Day Conference 2022. We have 4 interesting presentation lined up, both from the academics and also the industry. So we'll move on to the next speaker, Maithili Doshi Aphale. She's the art director and designer of Studio MNN, and she'll be presenting on alphabets as visuals. So can we have Maithili, please? So you are there connected?
Thank you very much, Mr. Uday, and thank you Typo Day for inviting me to share. I wouldn't say like I'm an academic and I have done like a huge research, but a little, experiment, I would say here. Hello, my name is Maithili, and I'm a graphic designer, but I've been working in publishing for past couple of years in mainstream publishing as well as children's books. And also I have my own brand design practice, which I will not talk and waste time about. So I'm going to take you through a little experiment, a project which we worked on. It is a book called Naye Shabd, which is New Words by feminist and child rights activist Kamla Bhasin. She talks about alphabets being introduced to children in a new way. So, but before I actually take you through the project, I would just quickly glance through the world of children's books, the way it is now and how it's been perceived. So far, I mean, we know children's books, they have always been about fairy tales or mythology or fantasy, though some different kind of work has been happening on and off. But lately, a lot of there has been a shift in the kind of books which have been published for children. People are talking about more complex, more difficult subjects, which normally we wouldn't have talked to children. So like whether it's Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, or whether it's Jamlo Walks, which is about a little child, who took a long journey to home during the lockdown, or Kyun Kyun Ladki by Mahashweta Devi, which is about a tribal girl who is questioning her position in the society, her rights, her urge to learn and to get education. So, but while these different kind of topics are being spoken, which is a great thing, how is the content still presented to the children? It is more or less the same, where the illustrations are dominating and the text is always the secondary, which is important, because children look at visuals to decode things, to understand the meaning of the words that they are reading, and it just helps them comprehend the words better. So how does typography come into play in children's books? It's like I said, it's mostly written words which are plain or simple, so that the child is able to read them and understand them, because they're also learning the language at this moment. Sometimes there is some amount of experimenting with the fonts to make the text appear more interesting, or sometimes to express the meanings better, or whether it is some movement or sounds or expressions, or sometimes a little play with the help of word expressions. But predominantly it is the illustration which we are dependent on when talking to children. But can written words themselves become more expressive? Can they become the dominant visual in a children's book? So this is a little experiment that we did with this particular book, which talks about the Hindi Varnamala, the alphabets, in a very different way. Instead of talking to the child about A for apple or O for anar, it talks about various topics which the children and grown-ups should talk about. So, like the author very rightly says, so it talks about different things like gender, equality, social justice, child's rights, and takes you away from this convention of A for apple. While doing that, I mean, we understand that these subjects are very difficult for a child who's learning ABC. So the book is actually meant for slightly older children to make them see the words differently or see the alphabets differently. Like the author very rightly says that, learning alphabet and sound doesn't mean you have to go the conventional way, and they can teach us many more things. So such an interesting and unconventional idea. When we read the book, we thought needed a very different and very new approach, like the way the letters are being seen in a new light. So why not look at the book and the presentation in a very different way? So we decided to make the text or make the alphabets the hero of the book, to communicate through them and present these to the children visually in a different way. Now, presenting letters, experimenting with the letters, there could be multiple possibilities. There is some interesting work done with fonts in Indian languages, thanks to the type foundries here now. And the other way was to look at hand-drawn or hand letter or calligraphy as a route. So while we were thinking of both ways, both have their own pros and cons. Like there are multiple fonts, like I said, available now. And we thanks to the type foundries, we designers have a much better life than what we would have had like a few years ago. But all these fonts come with their own unique voice, their own unique characters. And there is a limitation, we thought, where we can play around with their kerning, their sizes, the way they are positioned, but just distorting them or tweaking them just didn't seem right, because somebody has put in so much effort in creating these beautiful letters. But at the same time, there were these difficult ideas to be conveyed and to put forward these messages and expressions. So we decided to go with a more organic or a more free-flowing route, which is hand-done or hand-drawn or calligraphy letters. And also while doing that, the other thought which we had in mind was to present the letters, like how I said, visually in a different way. Also to somewhere showcase the beautiful Devanagari script, apart from how it's written in the Sanskrit text. That is the perception people have of Devanagari calligraphy or calligraphy in general. It is seen as a pretty cursive writing, and beyond that, to explain or to express yourself through this medium, we thought it would be interesting to see how children react to it. And that's why this seemed like a more suitable approach. So I collaborated with Nikhil Aphale, who's a calligrapher, and he works in Devanagari script for this project. Now, this is a vast subject. There are so many ideas. Like I said, what to choose and what not to choose was the next dilemma. Whether it's the letter, a single letter, many letters, words, sentences, or the entire words that should be heroed, or, so there was no one solution, or there was not one format which we thought could work for a book like this. So we decided to go a little more organic in the approach, where there is somewhere, so we let the verses guide us, lead us, because each verse, each poem has its own meaning, has its own beauty, and it directed us to pick and choose what we wanted to hero on each page. And that, I think, really made it exciting, because each page then looked different and each page was a surprise. But while doing that, there was another challenge, which is, now how do you explain Jativad, racism, to a child? It is very difficult and intangible. So we thought it would make sense to have some illustrative element. I wouldn't say a character or a bird or a tree or a very specific thing, but something which adds to the letters to convey the meaning. So to integrate, so use it as a supportive element where the illustration becomes a part of the letter and eventually creates the entire picture for the reader. So for this, again, I involved Priyanka Gupta, who's an illustrator and has been working with children's books for many years. So it was a three-way collaboration between a designer, a calligrapher, and an illustrator. And this book was happening during the lockdown. So all of us were in different places. The editor is in different place. So it was quite a challenge, but it was fun at the same time. Then you come to the more concrete work where you start drawing the letters, like how our body language, our expressions convey different meanings. The way the letters are drawn convey different things, like a thin letter, fat letter, extended letters, rough strokes, smooth brush strokes. They all have their own meaning and they all say different things and they all convey different meanings. So the words, the meanings guided the form, and hence the kind of tool which was chosen to draw each and every word. For example, here is the word azadi, which means freedom, where the author talks about freedom in general, freedom for everybody, and especially for children to play all the time, and the freedom which should be equal for everybody. So there is the word azadi written, which is drawn with a brush, and it's free flowing, it has soft edges, but towards the end they become a little pointed. The orientation has a kind of movement, so to express the freedom part of it. And a very interesting thing which we had not really thought intentionally, like one of the parents during the readings, she pointed out that there is no shirorekha, like the line on top of the alphabets, and for her not having that line meant that the alphabets were free, and it was not binding for her. So I mean, it just opened our mind, and it was really heartening to see that people were actually interpreting the letters in their own different ways. For example, gussa here, gussa means anger, and the author says that each one has the right to have be angry. Like in that sense, she says have their own opinion, voice their own opinion, but it should be controlled, it should be channeled in the right way, and you should stay away from this anger. So here the children are seen, pushing away the word gussa, but the way the gussa is drawn is, it ends with rough edges. It is, drawn with a lot of force to express the anger. Then the word ekta, it is unity, and the letters are again very thin, monolinear, and interacting and integrated with each other. Just the way the children are forming the circle, the letters are also interconnected and forming one word together. Or here where we have taken entire set, like couple of words rather than a single alphabet or a word, because here the author talks about khilkhilana, which is laughter or giggle, where she talks about that you should smile and make others smile. And that's why the treatment of the alphabets, the orientation, the movement, it all makes it more playful. And then here, where we talk about khabardar khamosh, which literally means be aware or be quiet. It's like a warning, and it's like it comes with a lot of force, because here she talks about girls or women having their own opinion, having their own freedom to spaces, to loiter, to be on their own, and also to voice their own opinion and break the silence and stand up for their rights. So, these are very, difficult topics and ideas, even for grown-ups. So to introduce them to children, at least the first step would be for them to at least warm up to the book and look at it or feel comfortable looking at it. If the same thing was done literally, I feel it may not be as convincing for the child, but we never know. And here, the word dar, which means fear, is drawn almost like a monster-looking word, because here the author talks about dar or fear being our biggest enemy and how we should overcome our fears. So the kids are seen, the children are seen interacting with these monstrous-looking words and almost laughing in the face of fear. So before the child reads whatever they read, and this is one of the most favorite pages, the children come back and tell us that, oh, we really love that page. Then the other angle or other way of looking at alphabets or drawing them was to make usage of the characteristics of the structure of the letters themselves. Like, for example, the knots in the ksha or ma or ga, the, or the some letters which allow you, like ra, to be extended. So how to use these or the matras or the diacritics, how to make use of these which are intrinsic to the letters and how to use them to communicate something. So for example, here aurat, so the o, the letter is au, which has the two matras which have been converted or which have been drawn like hands, because here the author talks about women being free, the position of women in a free country where they are not respected or where they don't have their own rights. So here the hands have been drawn such that the matras have been drawn such that they become the hands where the woman is reaching out for her rights. Or here the ukar of the u is used as something high, which the children are trying to climb, because again, here the author talks about, being together and helping each other to climb heights, like climb, not literally climb, but to move forward and to help each other. So you take an advantage of the letter and the characters themselves. Or here, where the word Pitrusakta and Jativad, which means patriarchy and racism, here she talks about how these two are, troubling the society and how we should get rid of them or overcome them. So the way they are drawn is very traditional, rooted, very old school, but we have broken the words and the children are trying to drive them away. And here, then she talks about Bhavishya, which is future, and how the children are the future of the society or the country. So the children are holding hand to form the Velanti or the Matra of the V. Or here, where the knot of the da is, here she talks about Dunya, which is the world, and how everyone has a right to see the world, including girls. And they have their own understanding, and they should have their own understanding of the world, and they should be allowed to go out. So here the child is looking through the knot and the telescope. She's trying to see the world, the stars, the new universe, which she wants to go and explore. So these are very various. There are almost more than 40 alphabets, multiple words, and multiple concepts which we were trying to work around with. And these are just a few of them which I'm sharing here. So it was always a challenge to choose, pick, and a lot of times draw something, no, it doesn't mean anything, go back, and so on. And then after all that, we also needed something to support this whole visual gamut, to write the basic, to write the complete the verses. So we chose Poppins, which we thought was a clean, open font, which didn't interfere with a lot of the visuals which were happening, to complete the book. So far, the book was published on the open source platform, the digital platform in around 2020 towards the end. And so far, more than 1,700 people, readers have read it. And it has been read across community libraries. And we also circulated this book because it's a very different approach. So we wanted to see what children thought about it. So it was also circulated with few children and their parents, obviously, because they read with them. So we got some interesting ideas and some interesting thoughts where, some of them were not Hindi speaking children, or Hindi was not their native language, but they thought because of the way the book was done, they thought it made it more warmer or made it more interesting or inviting to read it, which I think was a great sign to start off. Or some children thought that, they didn't know the meanings of certain words, but they could guess the meaning by looking at the way they were drawn. And then some of them also went ahead and did their own version of expressing the letters, which is, I think, great, because at least we got them to see them or experiment with letters in a new way, which they wouldn't have otherwise. They would just write like how the text is written. So in that sense, we thought it is a great start to this project. It's not gone into print yet, and we are hoping in the future it will go into print, and it will come out as a hard copy also. So this was a little journey of this big idea. And so thank you very much for letting me take you through this. And to all my collaborators who worked with me during this mad pandemic, and the author who's no more now. And but thanks to her for inspiring us to do the work we do. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Maithili Doshi, and congratulations on a wonderful book. Yeah, so it is very interesting and visually very pleasing to look at. Yeah, so yeah, I would now request the participants, if you have any questions, please raise your hands and you can post your questions, please. Oh, okay, so I think I'll start. I have two questions. Yeah, yes. So I just thought. So you had collaborators, right? So you had one calligrapher and you also had an illustrator.
Yes.
So what was your instructions to them? So what did you kind of tell them? What is that you wanted from them? Or you let them just do whatever they like?
No, I wouldn't say I instructed them, because to be honest, I have worked with both of them for many years now. So I think there was, so it was more like, okay, we have this book, and what do you think? So it was always, though as a title, I go as art director, but I prefer not to art direct, because it is something which we all want to work together on. So it was always, okay, the basic idea was I want to make the letters the hero. So when that was the brief, and then it was always a conversation between the calligrapher, the illustrator, the editor, and all of us throwing ideas, and and obviously we visually experimenting. And thanks to the editors and the author, they had given us a completely free hand as to what we wanted to do. So it was not like coming back to your question, it was not like instructions, but this was the vision, and then we all were working towards it and helping each other tweak it and check whether something is working or not working, I would say.
Well, that's a great team synergy, I should say. So that's wonderful to look at here. My second question is, so you had these words, expressive words, and how did you kind of choose a particular style or anything? So was there any other iterations, and then you kind of picked up one, or how was it? How did it?
So even between each page, it was like, there were multiple things, like what I said. Like the first instinctive thing was, okay, it's a book about alphabets, so we should hero the alphabet. Then we thought about it and we said, no, but there are so many ideas which also need to be spoken about. So then we started breaking down the text each time, and then maybe for each page or each verse, we tried a few things, like few styles. Somewhere we tried a word first. Okay, no, this is not conveying, but here the thought is important. Okay, then let's try some other word, try some other tool. Right from things like, do we want to use a brush? Do we want to use a sponge? Do we want to use a coconut husk? Okay, let's try this. What effect do we get? So there was a lot of experimenting also going on at the same time. Same thing with the illustrator. Like do I do something realistic? Try fitting it in. I would immediately try something. No, this doesn't work. Let's try something more. So it was always till we arrived at few pages, which we thought, okay, this is what looks, something which we want to go out and present. Then we started working on the whole book. So I think it was also thanks to the pandemic, we all had the time to, just sink into one thing and work on it. Yeah.
Okay. So, is there any questions from the participants?
There, I have a question to ask.
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks. Maithili, hi. Hi. I have a question, a small question, which is, how did you get to name it as Naye Shabd?
No, that is something which the author had thought about. That was her idea.
Okay.
And she wanted to say that this is नए बच्चों के लिए, नई पीढ़ी के लिए नए शब्द. Like for the new generation, these are new words which they should learn, like they learn ABCD, because these are very like even a 2-year-old knows A for apple because that's how they have been always tuned. But there is beyond A for apple. There is a world beyond that. So that's what she wanted to name the book. So that was not my choice, really.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that, and maybe you could convey this to the author, that, what you've shown is a paradigmatic shift in the way you learn letters, for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Not to mention that you are finally moving away from idea of this, this whole, for want of a better word, colonial idea of A for apple, B for bat. In some parts of the country, there isn't any apple even. So, but we make the child learn A for apple, okay? So it becomes an extremely cognitive, difficult exercise. So I want to say that the paradigmatic shift that this kind of learning of letters is represented by what you've presented is akin to the paradigmatic shift in learning that Gandhi was trying to espouse by moving away from the Macaulay system, by saying, go into your vernacular spaces, use a mother tongue, etc., which we are now finally doing. And he called it Naye Talim, right? And so I thought Naye Shabd is a very nice word, because in no measure any less than the Naye Talim that Gandhi was trying to espouse, and it's very much part of that, So that is the first thing. The second thing, I'm not addressing the style part, the form part. I'm just talking about the cognitive learning part, the instructional part. You said that it's for slightly older students, and that's the way it should be. That's great, actually. That's fine. And there is no need to actually, there are steps through which we learn letters. Now, in school, they introduce a second language when the child is at an older age. Why not teach this as part of your second language? And by that time, the child is older, and it is important to also pass on sensibilities about bad touch versus good touch, or gender sensibility, or transgender sensibility, or having new, aspiration in the right directions in terms of values, etc. By that time, the child, usually it's in class 7 or so that it's introduced, the child is completely in a position to understand those. Plus, it's important to pass on gender, all these kind of sensibilities. It's a new way of learning also. It's very exciting. Thirdly, I think it can actually be seen as language learning. So for an adult, I have been relocated to, let's say, Andhra, and I would love to learn Telugu. And maybe my child is with me, and I want my child also to learn Telugu. So both mother and child can sit down and do this and actually pick up a new language. Or you could be a diaspora Indian, and you could be learning your own mother tongue, which you haven't learned because you live in the US. And now you can learn through this. And usually diasporas, when they start when they consciously want to learn a language, it's at a much older age. So I don't think age is any bar. It's okay. It's fine. But you do end up learning letters, and then joining of letters give you words, and joining of words gives you sentences. So if you learn your letter, you're all prepped to learn a new language through this kind of formal, the semantic alignment of, it's like semantic design, semantic alignment between the semantics of a particular word and the form. So you said North Star, aspiration, reaching out. It's a semantic thing, right? It's semantic. designing actually, which is one of the easiest as in most facilitating way of learning something, because you're doing according to the meaning.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sure it's a long process.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
It is even to be honest, to get this book to schools or to libraries for teachers or caregivers to read it and to accept it is also still a struggle, because not everybody is, oh, acha, I have to talk about periods. Oh, the book talks about this. Oh no, I don't think my kids are still ready to read this, or we don't have the bandwidth to explain this to our class children. So we are still at that stage. So it's a long process, but it's a start.
New things are always difficult to.
Yes.
But
yes.
you should try the diaspora and places. But anyway, there are also new times. So it's congratulations for such a great.
Thank you. Thanks to the author for writing it. We are just, Yes.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Maithili. So for a wonderful work, keep up, and we look forward to more such kind of a work. I like, as you said, it's a work in progress, I suppose.
Yeah.
So we look forward to seeing in print as well. So
yes,
all the best.
Thank
so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.